don't get trucked.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Star Wars fans. And I love it when they catch us in midstream of talking during the promo and the hand gestures we're getting while we're starting. It's Joe in the pilot seat. Welcome back to another episode of Rule the Galaxy. Believe it or not, chapter 109. Man, we're getting up there. 109 Rule the Galaxy podcast. We have loved every minute of it. Some of you have as well. Some of you haven't, and you can let us know if you haven't. But we've had some great shows recently with Scott Rifen, Steve Glosson, Mark Anthony Austin. I mean, the list goes on and on. We did see that we just had a winner from the Scott Rifen giveaway of the free Marvel comics. So congrats for the winner out there. I'll pull that up on Twitter while everybody else is talking in a minute. And gosh, you know what? We've got a busy show, a lot of people. We've got regular co-hosts, and we've got special surprise co-host tonight. So let's just get to it, and we'll go around the horn. Brent Dykman, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always great to try to escape into the galaxy far, far away. Just looking to get some conversation rolling and see where life takes us. So just also the special guest, it's cool because I've watched the radio show that he is on ESPN a few times. So
thank you, Brent. Thank you. I'm very kind.
But you're more regional though, aren't you?
All right.
Definitely regional.
That's even worse.
Now we're having
Brent's my new best friend. Brent's my new best friend.
Brent's already making points with our guest host here. Next in line, hey, Mr. Nick Shesky, who just recorded a Clone Wars Chronicles that will be coming out soon. Nick, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Glad to be back on and hang out. I'm jealous again of everybody's Star Wars stuff behind them, but we just bought a house. So I got a new space that we're going to load up all the Star Wars stuff and get it all out. And I'll get out of my, what did we call it a couple weeks ago? The RV that it looks like I'm stuck in right here behind me. Yeah, like we've gone camping and I got left behind. So yeah,
it's like a little bit of a kidnap feel.
It's not far off.
I was going to say less is more, but the kidnap feel, we'll go with that, T-Bob.
A little duct tape around here and there.
Yeah. If we see any chloroform and duct tape. Yeah. Next on the list, another person who's talking about moving. He just went through a move. DDoc, how you doing in the new studio at the new house?
Yeah, I'm here on the other side. I actually made it to this house, but this technically is not my room. This is going to be my wife's home office. So right before recording tonight, I said, "Hey, can I throw some of my stuff right?"
Oh, hell yeah! It's important.
She's like, "You're not leaving it." I said, "I'll take it out tonight." So there was a picture hook on there, and I saw my Rocky poster sitting there, and I hung it up to see how it looked. She walked in and saw the Rocky poster hanging on the wall, and she was just like, "This isn't going to work." So,
oh man,
it's gonna be my last night here.
Hey, it's looking good with the Star Wars stuff behind you, and I'm glad you got the Darth Vader Lego helmet you got for your anniversary? Is that right?
Yeah, but I didn't build that yet, but that's sitting in the box. My wife knows me. We just had our 5-year anniversary, and she got me Darth Vader Lego helmet. So
there we go. I think the 5th year is Lego, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know what? I'm going to flip it over to our first ever guest. Me and Joey in episode 4, chapter 4 of Rule the Galaxy had this guy on, and we've loved having him back ever since. Our friend and yours from Louisiana, T-Bob. How you doing, my friend?
Joe, thank you so much, man. I love coming on here and nerding out with y'all. There's nothing more fun. I also am a big fan of the special guest, so there's like a very awesome synergy here. And yeah, bro, I'm just super hyped to talk a lot of things, but Obi-Wan Kenobi, let's ride. Also, eventually our special guest has to show us that helmet behind him.
So yeah.
T-Bob, you have a stuffed animal in your hand. Is this a comfort item?
I have 2 daughters all over the house, and it's just like I just reach out a hand, and so like
whatever's around.
Okay.
I don't know. It's an elephant, and then I'm like, should I be on camera with an elephant? It's like Alabama. I don't know.
Someone's gonna get a screen grab of that, and put it on Twitter, and the regional radio show is done forever.
Yeah. LSU be damned. There's an elephant on screen. I don't know. Maybe T-Bob's got big news. He's moving to another region. We'll see, but I doubt it. Especially since your grandfather used to take you to the games at LSU. I don't think you're gonna break away from that. So As everybody else has mentioned, and I'm sorry, it's been so, we're just having fun. So if you're listening and you hear all the laughing, it's because this is who we are and this is what we do here. But everybody else has mentioned that special guest, and I'm glad to have him on. I mean, we started interacting on Twitter, and he's just been great to interact there. And so when I said, hey, you want to hop on? And he said, yes, we couldn't pass this up. And we felt like, why not just double book and have two great ESPN guys on at the same time? We've got Mr. Ryan McGee. Ryan, welcome to the show. First time on it. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your Star Wars passion and everything like that. But welcome again to Rule the Galaxy.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. It's what happened was on Twitter, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, you threw out there just like a poll question, like who should our next guest be?
Mm-hmm.
And my response was like, me. And I think
Oh,
I threw a Palpatine, do it gif in there, like, come on. But no, I'm a senior writer at ESPN. And I'm proud to say that I'm the guy that anytime I co-host a show called Marty McGee with Marty Smith, who doesn't know anything about any of this.
Wow.
And I mean, a little bit, but then I also on SEC Nation on Saturday mornings and have been forever. And I have shamelessly worked so many Star Wars references into my essays or into whatever I do on the show that they actually, there's this animated version of me that they'll drop into these essays that I write for SEC Nation. And a couple of years ago, they finally just gave up and they just created a cartoon me with the lightsaber. And
awesome.
What color do you want? I'm like green. And so it was and we did a Halloween show a couple of years ago, and one of our amazing makeup artists gave me the full Palpatine get up. Marty was Willie Nelson, and I was Palpatine, and which was an interesting crossover. But yeah, but it was. But I mean, I'm in that age group, right? I mean, I'm a kid of the '70s, born in the '70s, and so. Episode 1 wasn't the first movie that I saw in a theater, but it was probably in the first 5 before it was episode 1. And I saw it probably, I remember begging my cousin to take me again after my parents had taken me. And then, and for you kids out there, I tell my daughter this, who's 17, I tell her all the time, she has no idea how good she has it. Because back in the day, as you guys know, whatever was in the theater every 3 years, that's what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And so comic books, and that's it. And so yeah, I scarfed up everything I could back in the day, and I'm in that generation where we grew up with it, right? I always tell the story about when Force Awakens came out, and my wife and daughter were like, listen, we've got this and this, we can probably see it on Monday. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, that's great. So I take my daughter to school. She was in elementary school at the time. I take my daughter to school. I drove straight to the theater, and I always laugh about like the 7:45 a.m. showing on that Friday, and literally everyone in the theater was between the ages of 43 and 65.
Yep.
And Han dies, and we're all crying and holding each other, And as soon as the movie's over with, everybody's got on suits, except for me because I write from the house. But everybody's got on suits, and this one guy up front stood up. He goes, "We're all in agreement that none of us were here." Like, yes, you got it. We're all in the exact same situation. So yeah, so I'm of that generation that's been fortunate enough to start with it, and now we're just it's a deluge of it, and I'm here for every single bit of it.
Well, that is absolutely awesome, and a lot of people will say that Star Wars and sports and jocks and nerds and all that can't get along. Well, I beg to differ because, I played a lot of sports growing up, and I'm a Star Wars fanatic. And my son Joey is in that industry and played all the sports, and he's a fanatic. And I see you guys, and here's T-Bob, who was a offensive lineman for LSU, for goodness sake, and he's into it. I'm of the opinion that, you know what, you can mix all that together, and you guys are living proof of that right there. So.
Yeah, it's just not what it used to be. I mean, being a nerd is cool, and and it's start between Star Wars and Marvel. And I'm not a Harry Potter, I'm not a wizard guy, so I'm not a Harry Potter guy. But you throw that in there too, and it's just So Mike Golick Jr., that I work with at ESPN and have forever. Mike played on a national championship. Notre Dame played in the national title game, and we all know about his family background. There's no bigger nerd than that guy. And so, some of the toughest dudes I know, some of the best Star Wars conversations I've had are with NFL defensive linemen and, and NBA power forwards. And it's just, it makes me feel better because I know somebody would have my back if they tried to beat up a nerd by the bike rack again. Right.
So Ryan, did you really experience through that? Because that's what's always been fascinating to me is like, I've always wondered how much of my nerddom was allowed to flourish because I was just always bigger than everybody. So like nobody was ever going to mess with me. So I had like an inherent kind of like built in, like I never got bullied over it. So I was just able to like fully invest in it. And also I think I was born in '89. So I think like things were already maybe becoming more nerdy when I was a kid, but was it really like, was the block kind of hot for the kids back in '79 wanting to go see New Hope like 10 times in theaters?
No, it wasn't. That's part of why I think Star Wars was different. If you were a Star Trek kid and all you did was talk about tribbles or whatever the hell, then you probably are, or if you were a hardcore Dungeons and Dragons guy, you probably fell into that category. But Star Wars was this transcendent thing. So if you liked Star Wars, it was cool. What was different was like I went as deep as I could back in the day, which that just meant reading books. That's really all we had. And so, I was a big X-Wing, like Rogue Squadron, novel guy. I kind of kept that to myself, and like I knew about Mustafar when I was 9.
Wow.
And it just was the volcano planet because I read it in I still have a first run copy here in my office that I bought when I was a kid of like the original novel version of Star Wars, little paperback book, with George Lucas giving credit as the writer. And that's where I learned about Coruscant and and the volcano planet and all these things. And there were times when I would check it, T-Bob, like you start, it's like talking about football. My brother and I talk about this all the time. You get on a plane and a guy next to you says, "Oh, I'm a huge college football fan." And then when you really start talking with him, you realize you're operating on a different level than they are. Like they like going to games, but they have no idea what an RPO is. And so you can't talk about it. And so with Star Wars, it's always like you kind of auto. That's why T-Bob, the first time I did one of your shows and you asked a question, I'm like, oh, okay. I got some guys in Omaha that I do shows with all the time, and we do all right. Spoiler warnings. Now we're going to talk about the movie we just saw yesterday.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other and it's liberating, right, to be able to talk about it because you have to kind of check it. I can't sit on a bus with, a bunch of country music guys that Marty's introduced me to and go, "Hey, Luke Combs, where are you on Ray?" That's not, that's not, but then it's awesome when they find out that they dig it,
Yeah.
Luke, is Ray a Mary Sue? Or is that
right. Who do you think Ray's parentage is? Okay, but there's certain people when you get it, just like sports, there's certain people when you get in the room, you can go to a certain level.
I mean, that's why I'm here. Like, right? That's why we're all here. Like,
exactly.
This is what we do.
Well, I would agree with you. And before I open up to the room, because I'm sure they've got questions for both of you, because they've been doing research on you guys. I want to talk a little sports or Star Wars with you. But I would agree because like Steve Glosson and Scott Rifen recently on the show said, for the guys who were lucky enough, or the ladies, who were lucky enough to grow up in the 70s, you weren't considered a nerd. You were cool if you were at the playground with your action figures with you or whatever. Then we went into that dark time. After Jedi, until Thrawn came out, it was really dark. And then when Thrawn and that trilogy came out in 91, 92, 93, the ones who couldn't get rid of that nerddom in their life got back on board. But the rest kind of said, that's in the past. So you had those people who started going that direction with, like you said, Ryan, the books and the novels, and they kept that nerdiness going while the other ones were just like, I'll see the next movie that comes out. Right. I mean, but yeah. And then you add in like the whole lifestyle of Big Bang Theory that changed the world again to where it was like, wait a minute, we can be that nerd level and still be pretty popular and cool and wear the Flash Gordon shirts or the Flash shirts or whatever and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's my 2 cents on it. And what do we get? Oh, Green Lantern. Love it.
There you go. There you go. Big Bang.
Don't talk to Ryan Reynolds about that, by the way.
That
Brent.
joke in Deadpool is one of the hardest I've ever laughed.
Oh,
at
I
the
love
end of
Deadpool.
Deadpool when he shoots himself reading the Green Lantern script. I mean, that's genius.
Britt Dykeman, go right ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Stranger Things brought Dungeons and Dragons back as well. So 5 or 6 years ago. And I found a new level to my nerddom to now where I'm actually watching YouTube streams of people playing Dungeons and Dragons. So it's actually, I'm quite impressed with it. To go to another question and just to get a question into Mr. McGee, I didn't realize that you were an author and you authored a couple books, one of which was about your father, who is the sidelines and working the rep from the rest perspective, but it's also growing up on the sidelines and in the college football. So you've been indoctrinated into football. So a couple things about that. One, he did a lot of Notre Dame games. So that had to be awesome to be on the sidelines, or if you were on the sidelines. So I kind of want to hear about that. But in the excerpt of the book, there was a statement that you were on the sideline, I believe, of the Rose Bowl or somewhere, and had a conversation with the maker.
No, I didn't, and I'm still pissed about it. No. So, all right,
okay.
all right, so yeah.
So it said that
We're
in the
going deep, man. We're going deep.
This is my favorite story in the book. So I'm shamelessly holding the book up now to show it to you guys, the Sidelines and Bloodlines. It came out a year ago, and no, the story was that I never missed any of Dad's. So my dad was a college football referee, official. He was a side judge, field judge, downfield, and he worked 24 bowl games, and most of them were high-level bowl games, like Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, national championship. His last game was the national championship in 2009. And so the reason I do what I do for a living was I had my first sideline credentials when I was 12. And I remember it was North Carolina at Virginia. It was a huge top 10 game. And I remember looking around thinking, everyone on this sideline is getting paid to be here. So the photographers, reporters, people working for the football team, I'm like, so how do I get on that? Because I don't want to be a referee, because I learned how to cuss through Eddie Murphy stand up and people yelling at my dad on Saturdays, right? But the point, all right, so the story goes is that my dad worked 2 Rose Bowls, he worked a couple Army Navy games, he worked on Orange Bowl, he worked like multiple national championships, a couple Fiesta Bowls. I never missed a bowl game. And so he worked in 2007, his second Rose Bowl. I think I have a football up here somewhere in my office, but the Grand Marshal of the Rose Bowl was the maker.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, was the one damn bowl game of Dad's that I didn't go to. And it was because of work. Like work sent me somewhere else. So in the book, there's a picture that I'll show you guys. That's the officiating crew.
Oh man.
Of the Rose Bowl, and that's Lucas right there.
Oh my God.
And so
your dad got to meet him, but you didn't.
Yeah. So the Rose Bowl I go to with Dad, the Grand Marshal was Carl Lewis. That's great. Love Carl Lewis. I was a runner the whole thing. He ain't George Lucas. And so, but the best part of the story is that my father was as a field judge. His job was to go get captains from one of the 2 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So he walks out to the field. He goes early. So he goes and gets the captains for the coin toss. So my dad goes and gets like 2 captains from Michigan or USC, whichever team it was. The other official goes the other. So now it's the 7 officials of the game. It's the 2 captains. And they're like, ladies and gentlemen, Grand Marshal George Lucas. And George Lucas walks out, and he's got Vader with him and Chewbacca and a couple stormtroopers. And they all go stand at the 50-yard line. Well, now there's this but the timing was off. Like there was nothing. So now they're the only people standing on the 50-yard line of the Rose Bowl. 100,000 people there. And no one knows what to say. And so Dad never met a stranger. Dad looks at George Lucas and he goes, it's so great to meet you. And George Lucas goes, and Dad said he could not have been more thrilled. He grew up in that area to be the Rose Parade and the whole thing. And so Dad says to Lucas, he goes, I can't even tell you how much money my sons have spent on you over the years. and Dad said that, George is like, well, thank you. That's great. I appreciate it. And so
pretty good.
Yeah. And so Dad, hell, I'm sitting there, I'm wherever I am watching the game on television. And it's the pregame, and there they all are. And I'm just losing my mind. And of course, my best friend from high school calls, and he goes, now we know the truth. He said, what? He said, there stands the referees with Vader. I said, yeah. So Dad met George Lucas, and I did not, and I'm still bitter. I tell you another funny story. I wrote another book with Dale Earnhardt Jr. Several years ago about the end of his career. And Dale Jr. just the other day told me a story I didn't know. He watched. He was at a race at Sonoma, California, and they said, "Hey, the Talladega Nights, the audio is being mixed at Skywalker Ranch, which is near Sonoma, California. Hey, would you like to go get a sneak preview of the movie?" And Dale Jr.'s like, "Sure." And he didn't really know what Skywalker Ranch was. So they drive him out to the ranch, and he gets in the theater. And Dale Jr. said it was him and like a couple of other people, like maybe 3 people in the theater. And Lucas came in and sat down next to him. And so Dale Jr. saw Talladega Nights like 6 months before anyone else, and he watched it with George Lucas. I go, well, and Lucas is a big auto racing guy. Yeah. So he asked me, he said, well, I'm like, well, did he like the movie? He goes, oh, he laughed his ass off the whole time. So yeah. So I know people who have talked to George Lucas, and I hadn't talked to him yet. So yeah. I'm trying not to be better, but I'll do it someday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's on all of our bucket lists, right? I mean, my dad could care less. George Lucas could walk in the room, my dad would be like, "Who's this guy?" But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, yeah, there's a few people you want to meet. He's definitely one of them. So I'm bummed he missed out on it, but you do have some good stories from it. So
that's like akin. I mean, that's like akin to like almost literally meeting like. I'm sure how people felt about like a religious prophet back in the day. Like that would be completely overwhelming to meet George Lucas to me.
No, my dad handled it way better. And my dad was never into Star Wars. My dad traveled a lot when I was a kid, and he appreciated our appreciation for it. But he never was into it, like like you and Joey always been. It wasn't like that for us, but he appreciated. He would never not buy whatever we wanted, but he was not one to like put us in the car and drive us to the theater.
Right.
But he certainly would, he certainly appreciated our appreciation for it. But yeah, no, Dad handled it way better. Dad handled talking to Lucas. If I talked to him, I would have probably peed my pants and passed out. Dad completely handled it fine. So
100%.
Done the Chris Farley. Do you remember when you made that movie? That was awesome. That was great.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. You remember when there was the laser sword? That was awesome.
So cool. Oh gosh, DDoc, Nick, you guys have anything you want to hit either of these fine gentlemen with before we get going talking more craziness in Star Wars? I mean, I know Brent brought a great one from the depths right there. That was great info for us there, Brent. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, Ryan. A second ago, you were talking about how do you talk to Star Wars people, and you're almost judging like how deep can I go, and how really the question of like, are you ready to go as deep as I'm ready to go? Because I don't know if you are. And when you said, I wouldn't tell people about reading the books. Did you notice we all sat around here and nodded like we were in some AA group or something like that?
Yeah, and you don't even understand. Right. You don't even understand the relief I felt. I mean, I mean, you do understand, and that's but I'll say this too, and I've tried to. I love Marvel too. I've got I'm a big Captain America guy, but I always tell everybody there's such a whole other level past what I know. Like, I went to Dragon Con for the first time back Labor Day weekend. We were in town for Alabama, Miami for Marty McGee, and I talked the bosses into letting me go over to Dragon Con. And there was a guy who was dressed like he was Kylo Ren. He called himself Ben Swolo because he had this silicone like ripped, like he originally said he bought it for Thor, and he's like, no, I'm going to do this. So he's walking around. It looked so real. I thought it was real, and I started talking to that guy, and he was the coolest. But within 45 seconds, he started having this Kylo Ren conversation that I was struggling to keep up, and so I love that so much. But yeah, no, I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, there's the folks that just watch the 9 films and they're good, and then there's the folks that live it 36 hours a day, and I feel like I'm closer to them than I am to the people that just go to the movies. But there's a whole other level that I don't even understand.
Well, so that was my question, because I think like I'm probably preferential to the books. I love the books. Joe loves the books. I'm curious for you and T-Bob too, because I don't know how deep you get into the books, but do you have a favorite that you go to, or that you would say, hey, these sustain me during the dark times? Like, I love, like, what for you? You got a book or book series that you go, man, this is where I'm at.
I mean, I like I said, I was a big X-Wing Rogue Squadron guy. I was always fascinated, by it was I was always fascinated by like Corrin, and I was always and again, I learned so much that because that would have been like mid 90s, and so that to me that was the dark times, and then when the prequels came out, all of a sudden you're starting to see the things that were written about in these books. And it's not canon, but but at least the planets were there and the characters were there. And for me, I used to, back then I was on the road a lot and in the car a lot. And back then, I read the books, but then what was almost more impactful for me was the book on tape version, because, I discovered pieces of John Williams' score from the first 3 movies that I maybe didn't hear. But because they used all the music, they used all the sound effects. It was like a old school radio serial.
Right.
And so to me, that was, it got me kind of prepped, right? It got me kind of prepared for, right about the time I was listening to those and reading those is when the special editions came out, and then here came the prequels. And so the momentum kind of picked back up after that.
It's very interesting with you being Ryan, our good friend Ryan Massengale, who's usually on the show. His favorite character outside of the main group is Corran Horn.
100%.
He loves Corran, and he loves the storyline. He loves the book I Jedi that came out during that time frame. So it's really kind of cool that you also had a a good connection with that on him. And that was a good time. It really laid the groundwork for a lot of the things that were coming. We were getting all those books, and then just like now, they were piecemealing, grabbing little bits and saying, well, let's put these into the prequels and go from there. So, that's pretty cool. I like that character as well. I don't think there was ever an action figure made of Corran Horn.
I don't know about action figure, but I spent my early 20s deep in the X-Wing miniatures game, which is just a great tabletop game, which is all dogfight, right? So you buy all the different ships, you can equip different pilots, different ships, whatever. But that was that, because I never really read the novels, because I grew up, 96, I'm like 7 years old. So the re-releases are what I saw. Yeah. And then the prequels come out and we're just kind of rolling. And I've read some of the new novels. I got to be honest, I enjoyed the first 2 Thrawns of the new ones. Nothing has really like super hooked me, but that X-Wing miniatures game hooked me for years and years and years. And I actually learned a bunch of EU characters like Prince Zizor, like all these other guys that I had never heard of from flying these lists. And now it's crazy. That's cool, because I feel like I know like what it's like to actually fly with these guys. But Corran Horn, I think he was like an E39. I can't remember exactly. I can't remember his ship, but he was like a pilot skill 9. Like he was a beast. Like he was one of the highest pilot skill in the game, tied for the highest.
Well, and Ryan, I'll cut him real quick. I apologize, but you also mentioned like books on tape. Next week we have Mark Thompson, who is the narrator for almost all the current Star Wars books. And that's what we've all kind of switched to, the audio versions, because he does such a great job in mixing that music in. Mark is fabulous and does a great job. So if you're still checking those out, check out Mark, because he's great at what he does. But go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh, no, you didn't interrupt me at all. No, part of why I always loved Poe Dameron so much is because he always kind of had, to me, like an X-Wing Rogue Squadron feel to him, because it was kind of, that was at the end of the day, the pilots were always my favorite. My birthday was last week, and my wife was out of town of work for a week, and I got a teenage daughter, and once I finally get her to go to bed, I have a PlayStation 4 that I never turn on because I'm either on the road or somebody's in the house or whatever. And if you needed me last week, Captain Morgan and I were playing Squadrons till like 3 o'clock in the morning. I got the VR deal and the whole thing.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you have the actual VR set?
Oh yeah.
man.
I did so much VR. I did so much VR that it was like Ready Player One. Like the next day, I would have a hard time adjusting to getting in the truck. Right.
That's awesome. I know. I did the VR one time with the Vader game.
Yeah.
I did it for like an hour straight, and I took those off. I was dizzy as all get. I could not get my balance straight again for like 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
if you were playing a lot of that, I'm sure it messed with you a lot.
Well, the good thing about Squadrons is you're sitting.
Okay.
When you're doing Vader, you're standing up and swinging, and I'm tripping over the cable all the time.
Well, and there's like a weird thing in VR where your brain, if you're sitting, your brain can process that movement. Like it makes sense. I'm sitting down. But like if you've ever played a game where like you walk in VR and your character kind of locomotes,
so I'll give you one. So at Disney World down in Florida, it was right before the pandemic. This is end of 19, and ran into Reese Davis, the host of College Game Day. And Reese has been taking his family down to Disney for Christmas, their whole lives. And his kid, both his kids now are in college. And but his son, who plays baseball at Duke now, Reese and his son were like, dude, you have got to go over to Disney Springs because I haven't done it yet, but they've got the full VR in the room, Star Wars deal. And Reese is like, Reese, again, I'm very proud of this reputation, but Reese was like, I can't believe you haven't done this, Star Wars guy. You gotta go do it. So
Rifen talked about that one time. I think it's shut down because of COVID, but Scott Rifen was talking about it too.
I've heard it's great.
Yeah, I gotta. Next time I'm in Daytona for the 500, I might have to go down to Disney and check that out.
Research.
I want to ask Ryan a question because this is something I'm curious about. So obviously, you're very tied into ESPN National. Disney owns ESPN, Disney World. And have you gotten some what's the coolest perk that you've gotten Disney World wise because of your role at ESPN?
So my family, I'm really bad, T-Bob, about not calling in favors. I don't like going to the front of the line. I don't like, I just want to do the thing and do whatever. But we were supposed to go to Galaxy's Edge right when it opened. And we didn't get to do it because of a family thing. And then we were going to, all right, well, that's okay. We're going to go back. And then COVID happened. And then we thought we were going to go back again, and we didn't get to go back in. So Galaxy's Edge has been open for a year and a half, and I hadn't been, and people can't believe it. And so we finally went back in August, and I called in every favor I had. I called everybody I knew. I was like, listen, you remember that time I helped you out with so-and-so? And one of my former big bosses at SEC Network, she now is she's one of my favorite people in the world. And I just called, I was like, hey, listen, I kind of tried to Jedi mind trick her a little bit. Hey, I'm going to be at Disney. If you need me, I'll be up at 6:45 getting in the queue, and so I called in every favor I had, and they basically, we wrote everything. We wrote everything a couple times at Galaxy's Edge my first time there, and honestly, and we love Hollywood Studios. Always have. It's always been my daughter's favorite park, and there's a lot of new stuff there, obviously. But again, when I go back, I go to Daytona every February for the Daytona 500. Have for almost 30 years. And next year I'm going to build in a riding day, and probably go back down there. And I don't even have to ride anything. I could just sit there. I honestly, God, I could just sit there and just look around for 8 hours, and I'd be completely happy.
You know what I'm feeling, Ryan, is with your book writing, and we've got a friend, Adam Bray, who's written a number of books in the Marvel and Star Wars universe. I'm feeling maybe a book about Star Wars fans. You writing, letting Bray throw in some,
If you would like to afford an introduction, I'm all in. So just tell me.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. I tell you what, we'll hit on a few. We got plenty of things we can just talk about in general, but we'll hit on a few news items that, some older, some newer, but we haven't really all gotten a chance to talk about them. And we'll just go around the room. Let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett trailer. I know I've talked to some of you about it, but it's been a while since I've had everybody here, and we've got new guests. The trailer for Book of Boba Fett coming out December 29th. I know everybody's stoked about that, and we can follow that up and even talk about the Under the Helmet documentary as well about Boba Fett. But DDoc, I'm going to start with you. What were some of your thoughts? I mean, how much more amped up does it get you to see that trailer than more things with that Boba Fett, Under the Helmet documentary we just got recently?
I'd say the word for it right now for me is thirsty. I'm thirsty for some live Star Wars content. And yeah, I'm really jacked. Honestly, like I'm obviously excited for a Boba Fett show, but I think Ming-Na Wen is like awesome. And her character as Fennec Shand is going to be like, I think this is going to be like her coming out party is one of like the coolest Star Wars characters because she's badass. I'm just excited to see a more extended version of her. Like I know we've had our bits and pieces of her. She was, sprinkled into Bad Batch, but I think she's going to be awesome in this show. I'm excited for it.
You brought up a good point because I fell head over heels for her because she's from the Pittsburgh area. She grew up around Dave Filoni, and they talked about it, and which means she's probably a Steelers fan. I'm just throwing that out there, but she's
terrible.
cool anyway. But yes, Ming-Na Wen, we cannot wait for that. You hit that right on the head there. Nick, how about you with Book of Boba Fett and the Under the Helmet, which, by the way, dang it, I was a little let down that Mark Anthony Austin didn't get a little bit notice in that. But I mean, he came out on Twitter and said, hey, let's not throw a riot. It's okay. I'm happy with what I've got going. But yeah, go ahead, Nick. Any thoughts on Book of Boba Fett and the Under the Helmet documentary?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was ready to throw a riot when I watched it back. I was like, you named every other freaking Boba Fett, but our boy, man, come on. And so I thought watching the trailer was awesome. I'm with DDoc, and really, I feel like after watching the second season of Mandalorian, I just feel like I'm going through withdrawals and like knowing that there's something and it's a different story than Mandalorian, and like that's okay, and I'm ready to see it. Especially like I thought the tragedy from season 2 of The Mandalorian, the Robert Rodriguez one that he directed, was one of my favorite episodes of the whole thing, just from the gritty Boba Fett fighting. And like seeing that little moment where Tamora Morrison like goes crazy again, like I'm so excited for that. And then I thought the Under the Helmet was so cool, just showing that it really felt like an ode to Star Wars fandom, because it was really like, hey, look, the fans got a hold of a character and look at the power and the sway of what fans have over Star Wars, right? And I thought that was pretty cool. I texted Alfie, I think it was in our group, and I just said, was this thing literally made for you? Like this was like an ode to Alfie all the way through.
No, wait, I'm ignorant. What is the Under the Helmet documentary? Because I love behind the scenes. I love documentaries. Like, what are we talking? Is this out right now?
Yeah.
You can watch it right now?
Yeah. Disney Plus. Under the Helmet.
What?
So T-Bob, Disney Plus released a documentary that was essentially like, how did the character of Boba Fett even like come to be, and how did fans latch onto it? It's only like 24 minutes or something like that.
It's great.
But it was really, really cool, and just kind of showing his evolution all the way through. Yeah, if we see T-Bob start gazing off into the distance, he's watching Under the Helmet.
He's online. Yeah.
Brent,
it just dropped, so you're good. You're not out of the loop. It's only
came out on Friday, I think. Yeah. So Brent, your thoughts on those things?
And I'm gonna tell you, T-Bob, don't be so upset, because I actually haven't found the time to work in the Boba Fett Under the Helmet. I know it's out there. I just haven't been able to review it. You hear me say this all the time when I'm on here. I'm excited to see the Boba Fett. It's not about the lowering the expectations, but that is true. But I'm curious to see if there is somebody new that catches our attention, because of what DDoc said about Fennec Shand. Fennec Shand was kind of was a throw-in character in season 1. They killed her off. They brought her back in season 2. She was then in the Bad Batch was pretty integral to the plot line for 2 or 3 episodes in the Bad Batch. So they brought her into that. And now they have her in the Book of Boba Fett. So Shand has made an impact on the storyline and the mythology of Star Wars. Is there going to be somebody else that comes out of this that is a rival to Boba? that will have that same impact as Finnick. And that's what, because you hear me say it all the time, I love my Star Wars, but I also want to see the new stuff to get us into the next millennium and to get us forward. Who's going to be that new person that pulls us forward?
Before I get to T-Bob and Ryan, could Jennifer Beals be the new person that they're bringing in? I mean, we got a Twi'lek.
She's a maniac.
Pretty.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Well,
I was like, I
let you
want to
go
say
then.
that. You beat me to it. Yeah.
Bring it, Ryan. What were your thoughts on the Boba Fett trailer and Under the Helmet if you've watched it?
Oh, did you say Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I'm excited about it, and it was something of some length. You know, the Disney Plus day was an amazing day, but there was a lot of, like the Obi-Wan thing, there was a lot of, we'll talk about that in a minute. There was a lot of concept art, you know, a little bit of interviews, and that was kind of it. With this, we had footage, right? And we had, this was like a trailer. And so I think that's part of what I was excited about. And he's always been interesting because, again, I was of that age, and the first time we saw him was in the middle of the Christmas deal, the Christmas special, and it kind of caught everybody off guard. Like, no, what was that? You know, now we're back to Wookiee singing, and and so it was, you know, for my age, you know, it was the character, it was the action figure you couldn't get, and then you got it, and then they discontinued it because kids were choking apparently, and so when you finally get it, and then he, you know, I remember so when I'm gonna date myself here. See, Bob, you know, this is dangerous. I always try to not talk about certain things, like when I'm around all the SEC Nation. I don't want ESPN to know how old I actually am. But I mean, I remember walking, because I love Return of the Jedi. Love it. Think it's underrated. It moved me emotionally, and still does. But I left theater. I remember thinking, like 2 days later, thinking, wait a damn minute, is that how Boba Fett dies?
Yeah.
and so anything that kind of course corrects on that, you know, I'm all for it. And so, but it's just, and Brent makes up an amazing point, and I wish that people could have experienced like the sequels the way I have, and this new material on Disney Plus the way I have, which is sitting with a teenage girl, because there are things that the kid of the 70s and 80s in me wants to go, what the, and then I look at her and she loves it. And, you know, the reality is we're setting up whatever she's going to have and whatever her kids are going to have. And so, yeah, there's that nostalgia part of me that's always going to jump up and down every time I see something that strikes a chord. But at the same time, getting to experience these new films with her and these new shows with her. I mean, you guys bring up, I mean, her immediate reaction was, "Oh my God, that's Mulan," right?
Wait,
it is.
Okay.
Oh, for Finnick Shan, you saying?
Yeah, that's Mulan, because
Yeah.
she knows that's
I
the original voice of Mulan, and so and she was on Agents of Shield.
knew that.
You know, yeah, so it's these characters. I'm with Brent. I'm all for the old school stuff. I'm surrounded by it sitting here in my office, but there's also that part of me that wants to see where it goes forward, because, you know, I get to experience it with my daughter, and you know, her Star Wars is very different than my Star Wars.
You know, before we get to T-Bob, I will say this. I think you and Brent both hit on some great things, because I look, whether I was the silly one and had kids really, really young, which I did, or I'm the smart one because now my kids are all grown up and out of the house, and I'm pretty much your age, Brian.
Yeah.
So, and then I look at DDoc and Nick, who have kids on the way.
Yeah.
Hey,
Alfie,
congrats, boys.
or Alfie, who's got a 2-year-old. But I got to grow up with the prequel trilogy with Joey. Joey was 6, 9, and 12 when those 3 movies came out. I was 6, 9, and 12 when the original came out.
Wow.
So it was like a mirror image. It was so poetic. And to see him, I enjoy the prequel so much more because of that. And because while people are ripping on it, I'm watching him, and he's losing his mind. Right. He's
Jar
like,
Jar. No, Jar Jar's
cool.
it. So I remember going and seriously going and seeing, like, so, all right, so C-3PO. My dad thought C-3PO was the most annoying SOB in the history of movies.
Yep,
I believe that.
I dressed up like C-3PO for Halloween because I loved him.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to, remember, my wife and I went and saw we see Phantom Menace on Thursday night at midnight or whatever, and it's all, it's all young adults, and everybody's like, oh, what's the story with the Jar Jar? And then I went back and saw it again on the next Sunday afternoon at 2:00, and the theater was full of kids, and they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
They loved it, and that's when I kind of learned my lesson, which is, all right, you know what? He wasn't designed for me.
Nope.
And Ray and Rose and all that, they weren't designed for us boys. They were designed for my daughter, who loves them. And so it's just I'm always been thankful for that experience in the theater with kids that were Joey's age, because I was like, okay, you know what? They're totally into the fact that this kid is the hero.
Yep.
Where I was sitting there impatient wanting to be Darth Vader. And so it's just again, but watching it with my daughter was the same thing, everybody else is like, well, what's up with Ray? And it's my daughter's hero. She's just paintings over in her room right now.
Yeah, Ray is so fun.
Ray is great. I don't know anybody was
Rise of Skywalker has problems.
Just girls,
awesome.
What are these girls doing in these movies?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? My girl loves it. So there you go.
Well, T-Bob, we got you after the show to watch Under the Helmet. One thing that I saw in Under the Helmet that I really liked was they actually the Jag eyes that are on Rex originally were on the Boba Fett on the helmet, and so they
Baloney.
Yeah, thank you. Just
when I saw that, I was like, oh my god! I was like, look at that.
Yeah,
man. Like, it was really cool to see that. And
that dude operates.
He's on a different level.
He's on a different level. I mean, he understands the ancient texts better than I don't know why I keep going to religion analogies tonight, but like if George Lucas is the Joseph Smith, he's like whoever's the next major guy that took over, right? Like he understood the ancient texts that were communicated to Lucas better than anyone else. All right, let's talk Book of Boba Fett, though. Because sorry.
Go ahead.
Go,
no. Go. I thought they were moving on to something else.
Okay. Because I could not be more hyped up for a few reasons. First off, I want to know what the hell is, and maybe this is explained, and because I never know, because I haven't read all of the new canon books and comic books, right? So maybe some of this is explained, but I want to know like what the hell is going on in the Outer Rim, because to me, that final scene in season 2 of Mandalorian feels like there is a massive power vacuum, and this is not a small power vacuum, right? Is the Hutt family gone? Obviously, Jabba's gone from Leia or whatever. So this is like utter chaos, but a ton of power to be had. This becomes, I think, especially interesting if you start to tie it into Mandalorian season 3, and does Boba Fett end up because if you look back at like ancient Star Wars, like Old Republic type stuff, right? Mandalore is like one of the major galactic powers, right? So like a Boba Fett at the head of the resources on the Outer Rim combined with Din Djarin, and maybe, I mean, who knows how you start to weave these threads together, like the power potential for a third faction to rise, and who knew Grogu fits in is wild. And so we do the 4 Mandalore podcast, which we bring back from Boba Fett, obviously. And my buddy Jesse, the Jetpack Don, he's one of the guys we were talking about earlier, a true lore master. Like one of the guys when you talk to him, like, oh, he is deeply read, like on a different level than me, right? And so his third eye is completely open, and we keep going back to the fact I feel like Mace Windu has to show up in this thing.
Oh my god!
Chopped off Jango Fett's head. All of Boba's life has been leading to this. Samuel L. Jackson fell out of a window. Nobody ever dies from falling in Star Wars. Samuel is the perfect age to come back and do it. Like the potential for Boba Fett, especially because like once you do Luke, all bets are off.
Yep.
Because season 2 felt like it was leading toward Luke, felt like it was leading toward Luke. You're like, they're not really good. You can't really do that. You can't really do that. And then they did. And I don't know about y'all. You know me. I cried my eyes. I thought it was awesome. I was like so weird. I'm holding my baby daughter. She's one at the time, like overwhelmed with emotion, just crying in the middle of my living room. So no, I cannot wait for Boba Fett. And Tamora Morrison's awesome. And obviously just the reintroduction of the character was great. But like, the potential, like y'all talk about launching Star Wars into the future, the potential is it's just so vast, and it feels very exciting because of that.
Agreed. Brent, you're going to hit it. I know what you're going to say.
Okay. Have you watched, what is the name of the movie now that I get? Inside Out, with the little red guy who is the anger.
Bro,
And
that's
there's
a
the
top 3 animated movie of all time to me. It breaks me
What-
down to like
Agreed.
just
I
fall.
can't- I can't watch
100%.
it.
100%. And then there's the GIF of the anger with the head on fire.
Yeah.
The mere mention of bringing Mace Windu back triggers my little red guy's head to go on fire.
That sounds like
How
a
are-
personal problem.
How are we
Darth
gonna,
Maul got chopped in half, dude. Darth
How
Maul
are-
got chopped in half and went insane and rebuilt spider legs. And we're like,
but
Okay, all right.
but how can we move forward if we keep rolling back in the past?
Yeah, so I feel you because that's one of my biggest problems with Last Jedi is that that's literally what Kylo is telling them. Or no, I love Last Jedi. What I mean is it's the wasted potential of Last Jedi, right? Last
Right.
Jedi was saying this, and for whatever reasons, they played it safe. They kind of reverted on a lot of that potential. So I definitely feel you there, but I guess at the end of the day, I'm a fanboy. And it would be awesome to see Boba Fett and Mace Windu, a person who has a purple lightsaber, because he has literally discovered a level of technique in dueling that is infused with the dark side. To see him and Boba freaking Fett to go toe to toe would just be like, oh. I mean, that's like your toys. That's like you're playing with your toys when you're young. You're like, pop, 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 pop.
I want Mace Windu to come back in a story that is set in his time frame. I don't want him to come back in a story that is set 30 years past when he fell out a window and
He comes
died.
He's
He
been
comes
working as
back
a
and he's just
Or
he's
60
just a-
years.
yeah.
If you don't
60
see the
years.
body, he's not actually dead.
There we
I
go.
gotta see the body. Until I see the body, I don't believe he's actually dead.
All right. We're not gonna go on the Mace Windu tunnel tonight. We'll hit that for another time. But we will go back to another character that's bringing back the past again, because this one, besides seeing Luke at the end of The Mandalorian season 2, this one's got me the most ramped up. Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know it was from the Disney meeting like 6 months ago or a year ago. We never saw it, but they finally released it out. The concept art, having Ewan McGregor and Deborah Chow talked a little bit. That got me ramped up. I don't know about you guys. Some of the concept art was beautiful. Seeing Vader looking at that hologram, seeing Vader and Obi-Wan fighting on, was that Mustafar again? My mind started spinning like, is this really happening? Or is Obi-Wan having a nightmare and waking up thinking about that? I don't even know, right? And I'm not sure any of us will know until that happens. But what are your guys' thoughts across the board? And I'm going to follow the same path I did last time. DDoc, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the sizzle reel with the concept art and all that kind of stuff. I was just jazzed. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, I had all this hype for like there's going to be a teaser trailer on Disney Plus Day. So like I'm kind of mad at myself because watching that little clip, I was almost looking past it because I want to just see a clip of Ewan McGregor in costume in the show, which I understand. I'm okay to wait for it, but I just can't. My brain can't comprehend Hayden Christensen and him facing off with each other again. And I'm also wondering, are they going to do anything different? Like, are we going to see a different version of Vader that we've never seen before in this show? Because you're going to have, I guess, a younger version of Vader. So will we see him with his helmet off multiple times? What will their conversations be like? Like, I don't know. Like, is he going to be a little more agile? I don't know. I'm jacked about it.
Okay. All right.
Gotta be more. He will be more agile. We can definitely
Yes.
promise that, right?
No, I agree. And I'll go out of order because T-Bob, you followed up right there. Go right ahead. Your thoughts
Bro,
on
I'm
this,
so hyped.
because
I'm sorry. I gotta jump in. I'm so freaking hyped, dude. Are you kidding me? So I had no expectation for Disney Plus Day. I didn't know it was coming. And so I had no expectation of the trailers. So I had a completely different reaction. A lot of my boys who were a little upset, including my lore master brother, the Jetpack Don, right? He was a little upset. And I came out of it and like, I'm watching it. I'm at like a radio remote. I'm outside like the local grocery store every Friday, hand out gift cards, the yeoman's work of a local radio man's life. and I'm out here and I just watch it on my phone. Yes. And I'm just watching on my phone and like, bro, I was like, man, I know I'm a nerd because I like whooped out loud. I had goosebumps coursing through my body. I mean, when you see the shot of Hayden Christensen with the training mask on, training, and the thing about it is it's not just, I mean, on top of the fact that we live in this crazy time when we are getting this space opera literally told with billions of dollars of production and artistry and creativity behind it over the course of like 50 years, which is it's akin to like seeing like one of the great temples of the past being built in your lifetime or something. Like it's insane on that level. And so to watch the soap opera between Obi-Wan and Vader play out, and Obi-Wan, a character who is so deeply rooted in misfortune. I mean, he held Qui-Gon Jinn dying in his arms. He held the girl he loved and Satine dying in his arms. Even Maul, he had a weird relationship with. He held him dying in his arms. He killed his boy. He killed Anakin, his brother. I mean, it's like, this is a broken man. So the characterization is fascinating. The timeline of the actual real world production is fascinating. And then for me, growing up in the prequel era, thinking about Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen rehashing these roles and these actors, how competitive and juiced up and how big they know this is, right? And they both want to prove to each other that they still got it. Because think about all the time that those two and little actors are kind of like alpha type of personalities, right? Everybody wants to be the big dog. And the time that they spent fighting each other and practicing, and now it's time to kind of dust those old skills off and you're playing Darth Vader. Like, I get so beyond excited thinking about watching this series, both in what's going to play out on the screen and in kind of all the real life machination and behind the scenes stuff going on.
Yeah, no, dude, you nailed it right there, Ryan. You know what? I'm looking at my notes here. If I skipped you on the Boba Fett stuff, I'm sorry, because I know you were talking about your daughter, but I couldn't remember. I was like, did I hit Ryan?
No, we got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just
I'm
just sitting there watching, listening to you guys. It's like,
no,
it's
that's
like
right.
watching what I listen to anyway. It's awesome.
Well, when with us being similar age groups, I grew up, that initial time we saw Alec Guinness, which, I mean, come on, let's face it, we didn't realize the greatness of Alec Guinness when we were 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. But then to see it transformed into Ewan McGregor in the prequels, you're probably similar to me. Ewan McGregor took Obi-Wan. I already thought highly of him, but then took it to the next level. How pumped are you for the Obi-Wan series with all the things that could go along with it leading into the original trilogy era?
Well, I go back to the first 10 minutes of Phantom Menace and how I was just so completely off the chart excited to see the Jedi be the Jedi and not be old broken dudes, having a swashbuckling deal in the hallway, then now it's, I mean, just to see them at the height of their powers. And to me, this is just the opportunity to see more Obi-Wan and to see more of this. And now I'm fascinated by the character in the middle, because we had Alec Guinness and, which, by the way, I convinced my daughter to watch Bridge on the River Kwai, which is like 8 hours long. And she loved it because when she realized, that it was Obi-Wan that was the star of the film. But there was old broken Obi-Wan that we all saw when I was a little bitty guy, and then there was young, swashbuckling, Obi-Wan, and now we're in the middle somewhere. And that part of it, I mean, to T-Ball's point, this broken man who's dealing with all of this, who was always the eternal optimist, and what in the world happens to him that he ages like he does over the course of 30 years, right? Because there's got to be an explanation. And so that part of it is what I'm fascinated to see. And also too, to our points earlier about how the different generations interpret this. And I keep going back to my daughter. We should have had her on the podcast. She's doing her homework upstairs. But she was so in love with Anakin and with Hayden Christensen. And still, she doesn't have a lot of her earliest toys, but she still has like the tall version of Anakin Skywalker with a really realistic Hayden Christensen face. And the funny part, I remember her looking at me when she was a kid, and she's like, "How did he not win an Oscar for this?" And I just was laughing. And I remember thinking, "Babe, you don't even know how that's runs counter to everything anybody my age said about him right at the time. But again, her generation loved him. And so that it was interesting watching it with her because she's in the back seat of the truck the other day. She's watching it. And it's all art and whatever. But the second she saw like a glimpse of Hayden Christensen, the look on her face. And so that part of it is fascinating. But just the character arc. I think Obi-Wan was always an underserved character anyway. Certainly from when I was growing up. And so now to see that fulfilled, it's it's just and I love, I mean, it was the interview, I'm trying to remember, maybe it was Jimmy Kimmel, but it was several years ago when they first were talking about going to do the series and all that stuff. And I remember, and Jimmy Kimmel was such a hardcore Star Wars guy, but I remember Ewan McGregor like actually closing his eyes and saying, "Hang on, I've got to get into character." And then all of a sudden his voice changed. And there it was, and so I watched the film movie not too long ago, had young Alec Guinness in it. And it's crazy. It's crazy how much he sounds like you. So yeah, it's going to be, of all the projects that have been thrown out there, this is the one from the jump that I was the most excited about. And I think I'm certainly not alone in that.
Gotcha.
One thing I wanted to add on my point real quick is that too, obviously we all love Lucas, and I can't remember who wrote the biography. Lucas' biography is awesome as well, but everybody has weaknesses, and if there was one weakness with Lucas in the he's never been maybe the best at like coaching actual actors and actresses, right?
Yeah.
And
more energy.
some of the
more energy.
Faster. Yeah. We all know. Okay, exactly, right. So, and then it's like, you combine that with or some of the wooden dialogue of the prequels. So it's like now with Deborah Chow and the writing team in place, like some depth potential, like some real development, like again, the emotional potential. Filoni has fleshed so much out of this with Clone Wars, but the emotional potential of all these Obi-Wan and Anakin and Vader vibes as he figures out, I guess, that Anakin's Vader, right? Because he won't know. He thinks that he's killed Anakin.
I would assume yes. I mean, that's where we left it at. Nick and then Brent.
Yeah, Ryan, to your point, you're talking about your daughter loving Star Wars, and like I convinced my dad to take me to see Attack of the Clones. I'm a child of the prequels. To go see Attack of the Clones maybe 7 times.
Yeah.
Not kidding, 7 times. And I kid you not, I'm sitting in the theater going like, this is what love looks like. Like this is it. Like this is how it happens. Like this is I don't know. I've never been in love. Maybe this is how it happens. Like
fruit on the back of a blurg.
Yes.
On the back of a blurg.
And so literally like Ewan McGregor is my Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. And so for me, the excitement level is so high. And I really don't ever get like this. I'm normally the guy that's like, let's get the Star Wars when we get it. And this is awesome. I was so excited thinking that there was going to be a teaser trailer, because this is the one, I'm with you, Ryan. I was so excited for this one over anything else, that in our text group, all of a sudden these guys, and I'm going to blame you guys, start texting out links that are being pulled by Disney ahead of time. And they're like, it's here. And I'm at work, I'm in a meeting, and I'm seeing it just blow up. And I literally jumped on after the meeting and I saw it, and I watched the minute-long thing, and I went, is that it?
Yeah.
Like that was it. Like I was expecting it. And later I was like, am I being like the kid that goes to the Grand Canyon with his family? That's like, it's a big hole in the ground. Like am I just so excited that I was like, oh, it's like, I'm so passionate. I can't wait to see it. I think that's where I fall.
Well, there's a point, and this was the excitement of the prequels. And if you hear Mark Hamill talk about, the interview when he's talked about when George took them to lunch and said, we're going to do this. You've reconciled with the notion that, you know what, we ain't getting any more. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the last one, Jedi came out when I was 13, and I ain't going to get any more. I'm going to get the special editions in the theater, and I'm going to get, I'm going to read books, and that we're done. And so I think that you just assumed you weren't going to, when Obi-Wan went into hiding, that was it, And so I think that's where the excitement comes from, is there's that part of you where you just went, well, that was awesome, but we're done with that. And now you're not.
I'm 13 again.
It's such a fascinating kind of thing too, the differences therein, because like I remember being probably like second, third grade lunchroom, maybe fourth grade, something like that, right? And we're all talking about Star Wars, and they're like, there's 9 episodes, right? And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, bro, those are 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, yeah.
There's prequels, and I'm like, what? Are you
Yeah.
serious? And then sure enough, a few years later, the prequels start.
Yeah.
Now the sequels are. That's what I'm saying. That's what I always have my mind blown by. I mean, I look at all of our different age ranges right here on the pod, and yet the thing we're united over. It's just this massive artistic creation that has spanned decades now at this point.
I'm going to go to Brent, but it makes me think of, people living in different times where the Odyssey or, the Iliad or, you're looking at things where you're like, at that time frame, this was what we're doing right now. So in 100 plus years, they're going to look back and say, this crazy group of people over a 40 or 50 year time frame, this was their culture kind of shakeup thing right there. So Brent, go ahead and finish out on Obi-Wan, and then we got some fun Galaxy's Edge stuff to talk about.
So I think I'm a sucker for a sizzle reel and a teaser trailer, because out of all the projects that you guys are talking about, I was really into the Andor one, because last year at the Disney Investors Day, they played a sizzle reel where they talked about 12 episodes, 200 characters, many of them like actually having their own names and costumes and having named characters in there. So that was what got me. I wasn't really interested in the Obi-Wan because he never really latched on to me. I'm not a Clone Wars series person. I'll watch. Go ahead, T-Bob. I'll come at you like an offensive line or a defensive.
Don't chill out, dude. Don't you mention Jarrell Poe again, Brent. I'm gonna plug it in and beat your ass.
Oh, we got a Mace character on the screen.
So with that being said, like I'm not like Obi-Wan never really held me. However, watching this little teaser trailer, I actually was like, dude, this gets me, right? Because it showed me a little bit of things, and there's 2 video. We haven't really got into the details of the teaser trailer that they released, or whatever you want to call it, sizzle reel. There were 2 pieces of concept art that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but it really struck a chord with me. The Inquisitor ship with the Inquisitor coming off of it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And a dope ass Vader sitting in his throne looking at a hologram. Like that look was like everything you wanted Vader to like. So you got Vader that you wanted in Rogue One, right? But this is the guy like planning that out. Like there is just something about him sitting in that throne, and kind of the pose in that concept art was like kicked back in like bro style. I got this. I know I am Vader. Those 2 images, if they get translated into what I hope they get translated into into the actual show, I think got me excited.
Well, I think there's some synergy there with how we talked about Boba Fett earlier, because to me, Vader and Boba Fett have always been fascinating commentaries on the power of design, right? Because again, like we said, on screen, Boba Fett, not a very impressive character in the original trilogy. No, I haven't seen Wookiee Life Day, so I don't know how he shows up there. But I'm talking about what we see in the canon films. He's not necessarily the most impressive, but that outfit was just so freaking cool. And the toy. And Vader's the same way. I mean, like just when you see that silhouette, and a lot of it's like samurai influence, but when you see that silhouette, you just know like, oh, like you don't want to mess with that dude. And that's what I get when I see him sitting in that chair.
It just was like the supreme Vader. Like he's everything he's meant to be. I feel like from that picture, like they captured it, the essence of who Vader was.
Any really cool dude who's been able to hook up with Natalie Portman can sit however he wants to.
Bro, I had such a
that's what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to.
Insane.
This is love.
There you go. Fruit floating through the air.
That's right.
Right there, man.
Not only is it love, but that white outfit is quite possibly the quintessential outfit of any it's like the Ursula Anders Bond film girl chick, that white outfit.
Cosplayers tear that white outfit up, man. They tear it up. So real quick, just some side things. We've been talking about pretty deep subjects, everything like that. One, Baby Yoda, Grogu, will be in the Macy's Day Parade. We talked about hitting into culture, right? And you think about like Darth Vader made it into culture. C-3PO and R2-D2 made it into culture, right? That was part of the mainstream. Baby Yoda, Thanksgiving Day Parade. I mean, when you get up on that, you've made it, right? I mean, that's
do y'all
a big deal.
correct me? This is my great thing that I never know how to deal with. When people in public call it Baby Yoda, are you ever tempted to be like, well, I mean, you know,
It's
like
You know his name.
You know his name, but like,
yeah.
I know there, but I don't want to spoil it for you. You've never seen it. Like, I don't actually know how to handle that ever.
I'm the one that will call him Baby Yoda, and I've had like an 8 to 12-year-old kid correct me and say, "No, it's Grogu." I'm like, yeah, I know it's Grogu, but it's Baby Yoda because that's just Grogu's just the weirdest name ever, and I still refuse to acknowledge Grogu as the name.
Dude, Grogu's a great name.
It's
a
terrible name.
Great name.
It's a terrible name.
I'm going to tell Joey
to
tell Joey to name his kid that middle name.
There
like
you go.
baby,
But this
Grogu.
goes back to what I was saying earlier, though, is you got to check yourself. All right. So at what point do you correct him? And at what point do you just go, okay, you know what, man, that's cool. Yeah.
With that kid, I was like, all right, I'm cool with him correcting me, right?
Yeah.
I'm cool with him correcting me because it means he cared about it, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I'm gonna call him Baby Yoda. I'm sorry, like
you gave him detention. Don't try to act like you let
him. It wasn't a student. It was actually playing my game and trying to talk to him about my game, like a play game or a play afternoon.
I forget going around the room here. Brent, you've been to Galaxy's Edge, correct?
Yes, sir.
I have been. Ryan, you went?
Yep, got my hat.
There we go. I like that. T-Bob, have you been?
I have been. I have not ridden Rise of the Resistance. I've ridden Smuggler's Run a bunch. I did Savi's workshop, built the lightsaber again. I just cry a lot, I guess, is the theme, because I did tear up again in Savi's workshop.
I think T-Bob is going, for those that are watching on YouTube, I think T-Bob just went full Vader because like he is just now strongly silhouetted and it looks kind of Vader.
I got kicked out the house, dude. I woke up my kids. I was being too loud. I got kicked out the house. I got straight up kicked out the house.
Just be glad you can go outside right now. It was snowing today in Indianapolis. So,
let's see, look.
So, look!
Oh
my God!
We did Droid Depot, and you guys know I'm a motorsports guy. So I when I got home, I called mine RP53 for Richard Petty, and I put I put the stickers on there. So
hey, DDoc, when we get done with the show, that's definitely a screen grab. You need to grab right there of that one. So DDoc and Nick, you have not been to Galaxy's Edge yet, correct?
I've not.
Okay, well. You might be getting some more things than we got the original time through, because our good friend Mark Dubold of StarWars.com and the Star Wars Insider writes that they are looking to add 4 more things to Galaxy's Edge. One is called the Calicori Club, which I'm guessing is another eating place. They're going to have a Bantha ride, which I don't know if it'll be maybe live animals put the fur over them.
The old camel elephant ride from the zoo.
They're going to have the bounty hunter ride, which could be anything. And this one kind of caught my interest because, Ryan, you mentioned Return of the Jedi. One of the coolest things of Return of the Jedi was the speeder bikes on Endor. They're going to have a speeder bike ride. So does that ramp anybody up more to make them want to go to Galaxy's Edge now? And here goes DDoc with another visual.
There you go.
The biker scout right there. That's gorgeous.
That's it. Well, hey, all I know is that for years, when you right at the entrance or exit to Star Tours, you know, they had the speeder bike.
Yep.
And you'd see 30 people in line just take a picture with it.
Yep.
So I would assume that there's probably going to be, and if it's anything like, so like the Tron Light Cycle roller coaster, and the and if anyone's ever ridden the Avatar, there's 2 Avatar rides, and that one Avatar deal where you're riding the back of and I'm not Avatar, but the dragon or whatever it is, That's unbelievable. So if it's anything like that experience, I can't even imagine.
My favorite ride at the whole park, at all the parks.
No, it's
Avatar?
crazy. Yep.
So
How does Rise compare to Avatar?
It's a good question because I never got on Rise while I was there.
They're so different rides. Like, so Rise of the Resistance is going to the visuals you see. If it's an LED screen, it's so clear that it looks like it's real happening outside of you.
Wow.
And you're in the Star Wars world, and it's also more of an experience tied with a theme park ride. There's more of an experience to it. Whereas the Avatar ride is a straight up 4D experience where if you've watched the shows, you feel like you've linked up with one of the Banshees and you are flying it. Like, and
Okay.
Ryan,
No, you know, Brent's right. It's like Smuggler's Run. The experience is not unlike the Banshee ride at Avatar, just the build up to it and the queue and the experience of getting into it. But Rise of the Resistance is the craziest thing. I mean, it's hard to describe how awesome that thing is. I mean, every time you think okay, well, that was cool, there's a whole other thing that happens, right? Every time you think it's done, they put you in another thing or you do another deal. It goes on forever. Like, it goes on. It's like, I mean, you're in there for like 20 minutes. I mean, it's amazing.
Ryan, I'm
going in February. I'm doing the Mardi Gras thing that Louisiana people do, because we all get off for Mardi Gras. So you just go to Disney during Mardi Gras because nobody else is off.
Well, text me. I might be there. I usually sneak down there for at least a little bit during Daytona.
So going more with Galaxy's Edge, we've all joked about it. The Galactic Star Cruiser, right? I mean, $4,000 to $6,000.
Yeah.
Whatever per night or every other night or what have you. Disney put something out the other day that said they are already booked up for the first 4 months.
Yeah.
First 4 months. That's a lot of cash. I'm planning my trip to Italy right now for 2022.
Right.
It is more per night to go to the Galactic Star Cruiser than for me to go to Italy now.
Yeah. So what are your priorities, Joe?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
have an honest conversation. Like, we got
happy wife. Happy wife is a happy life.
Yeah.
And you know what? You guys are all you youngsters here, Nick and DDoc, 5 years, 2 or 3 years. Next year is our 30th anniversary. So
good work.
Yeah.
Good work.
Made it through the good times and the bad. Here we are.
Got married when you were 9. I didn't realize that. but no, it's I think it's a 2-night minimum. And and it's going to have this special, entrance into Galaxy's Edge and the whole thing. And it's it's going to be crazy. But it's the concern is always how much does it cost, and the concern is always these things. But the reality is that until people prove that they're not willing to pay it,
they're gonna.
Then that's how free market system works.
It's a boutique tailored experience, right? Like, I believe that there is an element of you are going to get what you pay for. Like, me and my wife have already planned it out. We haven't booked yet, but like, we know that like we're literally leaving the kids for a weekend for us to go and do this thing, right? So it's like, exactly to your point, Ryan, if people are willing to pay it, but also I just love this concept. Like, we all love theme parks, because theme parks, at least for me growing up, felt like they were always pushing at the edge of what was like new and innovative. And this feels like somebody like, really thought about Westworld, and Batuu feels like a first step in that direction. We're like, let's make this like truly immersive, like the entire park. And then it sounds like this hotel is that taken to the even next level. So like, of course, I'm absolutely into that, and I get it, and you know what, I'm willing to pay it, and it's like tight numbers, so they're going to charge more, and it is what it is.
And there's a new dining experience at Epcot, where it's this same kind of idea where if you've ever eaten in the restaurant that's under the ocean, over in the seas area of Epcot, now there's the space experience where you simulate like you're going up this hyper speed elevator up to a space station, and you're eating in a space station. And it's kind of to Brent's point, there's parts of Rise of the Resistance that are like that. When you come out onto the deck and you're on you're on Star Cruiser.
Dude, it's breathtaking.
Yeah,
it takes your breath away.
And this new restaurant at Epcot they say that's about 10% of what this this resort experience
Star
is gonna
Cruiser
be like. So yeah, it's going to be. I'm not just saying this because I'm literally have a paycheck right here with Mickey's face on it. I'm saying this because I mean it. It's from what everyone has told me, the scouting reports are off the chart, and they are not even close to being done with it yet.
Wow, Brent.
Just a quick nugget. I actually got to scuba dive in that tank where under the seat tank.
What?
So here's the thing. If you know Disney's weird, but I have friends that are like Disney nuts. They have weird experiences that if you pay for it, you can do certain things. It's cost effective. I got 45 minutes to dive in the tank. I was about a foot and a half away from an 8-foot tiger shark.
Oh yeah.
And I got to mess with the people eating in the restaurant.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal, and I didn't expect it. So I'll give you a little nugget with that. But it's like $200. You get 45 minutes in the water, right? So I swam over to the window, and there was 2 couples eating, and they had like the chocolate lava cake as their dessert. So I'm over there, and I'm looking at them. They look at me. I wave, right? And then I because I'm a fat guy, I point to the food. Like I'm pointing through the window, and the guy's like, me? And I'm like, yeah. And then I point down at what he's eating, and he holds the lava cake. And I'm like, yeah. And then he tries to put it through the window, right? And I reach my hand in like I'm punching to grab it, and I'm like, ah.
That's awesome.
And then I look up, and there's like 6 camera phones on me because I'm
They're a show.
interacting with this. Right. I was the
Brent's the entertainment.
They tell that story forever.
There we go.
Yeah, they tell that story forever. You remember that guy punching on the glass?
I'll tell that story forever, but that was one of the coolest experience. So if you ever get a chance, and if you're a scuba diver, I would go into that Epcot thing. So since you mentioned it, I thought I'd drop that nugget.
Well,
That's amazing.
I know I mentioned it earlier, but I did promise, and I want to say it the right way because just real quick, Enzo, when you listen to the show, happy birthday, man, from all of us. 13 years old. You're a teenager. That's awesome. Your dad is bringing you up right with the Star Wars and the Marvel and all that. So, but stop cussing on our show because Enzo, you cuss in the background when your dad's on. We caught you. So
I just got murdered. He threw another word in front of it. He was playing Battlefront or something.
Yeah.
And he just like, I just got blanking murdered.
Yeah. So I only had a couple real quick hot topics, and then I've kept you guys long tonight, so I don't want to. I've kept everybody, and I shouldn't keep you guys this long, but I appreciate it. One, Rogue Squadron. Ryan, you mentioned how you are a Rogue Squadron fan of the books. Guys across the board, I'll start with DDoc. Rogue Squadron getting booted. I mean, what are we feeling here? Is Disney and the movies and Star Wars, is it just not clicking right now, or are we going straight to streaming for everything from now on?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've read so much on the internet this week about the fact that they're like, oh, they're not giving the creators the directors any creative direction. Everybody's controlling everything. And I'm sure this is into another topic with Kathleen Kennedy. She's extended, blah, blah, blah. I don't care so much as who's in charge or what. I just want direction, and you're my guy. Because back to the Boba Fett little documentary we watched, there was so much creativity then where it was just like, hell yeah, do that. Let's throw Boba Fett in a parade and look at what he became. So it's like, it's like people are like, well, look at how much Star Wars we're getting. I totally agree. I love it. I just want to know. It's like when the Eagles kept going to the NFC Championship game and not winning a Super Bowl. It's like everyone's like, well, you guys keep going to the NFC Championship game. And it's like, yeah, but I don't have a damn Super Bowl. It's like
Colt fans feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I'm not going to complain about it. I love all the Star Wars we're getting.
Yep.
It's like I won't complain about it at all. But like I just want there to be like, you're my guy. I trust your creativity. Go do your thing. Because I was excited about that. It's kind of disappointing to see it.
Agreed. Nick, any thoughts on the Rogue Squadron?
Yeah, I agree with that, Dave. I think for me, it's less of like I don't actually care who is doing what, as long as it's cohesive and it makes sense. So I think like back to the, sequel trilogy, our biggest beef was it felt like we got 3 or maybe 2.5 semi, individual takes on movies. And it didn't make a ton of sense when you watch them all back together. And for me, I go, while it's disappointing, there's part of me that goes, okay, well, better to have that happen now than to get down the road. They start doing something and like the Colin Trevorrow, script happens and they get all the way to the point where they're getting ready to shoot it. And then they're like, well, we have too many creative differences. Part of me is like, hey, put this thing to bed before it turns into something bigger, before we all get fatigued and spend 50 shows on here going back and forth of, well, then they canned it and they brought this, like, just give me some cohesion across the board. And I think that's why I like The Mandalorian so much, is you look at Dave and you look at John and you look at the consistency as well as the connectivity between all the different stuff. And I go like, okay, if it takes a little longer, but I get more of that, then deal. Like I'm in for that. Don't just churn out Star Wars and just to churn out Star Wars.
I got you. Brent, T Bob or Ryan, any thoughts? Brent, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brent. Go ahead.
I was just getting my whole take on this is just my understanding, and I'm not, by no way a insider. I'm sitting in Indiana. I'm not a Hollywood insider, but the way that I understand the way that movies work, scripts are approved and then they're thrown away. Scripts are approved, they get into the production and they throw them away. This happens with that, whether it's Star Wars or not. Like, writers will write things, people will look at them, they'll attach their names to it, and you'll hear stories about, well, I was on this project for 10 years before they even get to a point where they get to production, and it went through 4 directors' hands. And that's just on regular movies, right? So that's the way that I look at this. I know that we're big Star Wars fans, but it's basically just part of the Hollywood process. And it means a lot more because they dropped it during Investors Day to build the buy-in for it. And so we expect it, but at the same time, this is just the way that the industry kind of works and moves its way around. People come and go all the time through projects. What is it? Cameron on the Avatar, it took him 10 to 12 years to get that thing working. And they're also making an Avatar 2 and 3, but that's what, 15 years? I was just talking to a friend.
They're making like 5 of them.
Well, the first movie was like in 2010, 2009. So we're talking like almost 11 years since Avatar was made before they're dropping Avatar 2 and 3. It just takes time to make the movies. It takes time to get the right people involved. So if anything, I'm with Nick when he says take the time to do it. But I look at it just as like, well, this is just the nature of the business. And it doesn't get me up or down. I would love to see a dogfight movie, like a Top Gun style X-Wing movie, because what's better, the sound of the X-Wing and the TIE fighter flying through the air and seeing like a dogfight of those things would be amazing. But I want it to be the right movie, not just a Star Wars movie.
Gotcha. T-Bob, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's an interesting thing where, like, I kind of see all sides, right? You want to get it right. And so if it's just not clicking, there's definitely something to be said for like avoiding this loss fallacy and just going through with it. I do think the very personal disappointment in the sequel trilogy is that didn't follow the template of the original trilogy. While, the original is all George Lucas' vision, but in different directors, right? Like, the thing that gives the sequel trilogies its most disconnectivity is that they ended up going back to J.J. Abrams. And so you have this story that feels like it's like, J.J. wanted to tell the story, but for whatever reason, he wasn't allowed to tell the middle part. And then you think about Solo, and it's like, that got very deep into production. Like, I mean, I think that is atypical what happened on Solo in terms of how deep it got, which was made there. And I hesitate to wade into these waters because I like Kathleen Kennedy. I have zero problem with Kathleen Kennedy. And like, as soon as you say anything about something like this, you get lumped in with a whole bunch of talks that I don't agree with.
Yep.
It's just that I like I said, I love behind the scenes. I love making up stuff. And so I love creative freedom for the director. I'll always side with that over kind of studio heavy-handedness. I think it's one of the reasons why Favreau and Filoni have been so successful is because Favreau had the cachet to gain the trust of the big names and combine that with his Filoni's knowledge of the text, and all of a sudden you have that kind of creative carte blanche. So I'm always worried about studio overreach, I guess is the long and short way of saying this. But at the same time, if something's not working, I can also see just, don't put it out versus putting it out and have everything go toxic. And Solo, for the record, like I really do like Solo's a very fun heist movie. And it had Maul live action, which what the hell, now it's wasted.
Okay. Ryan, any thoughts on the Rogue Squadron? Because like we said, I know you're into the books of that. Any ups or downs with this not probably happening now?
Well, obviously I want it to happen, and I hope that it happens. But I also think that we know too much. I really do.
That's so true. That's so true, dude.
I get so angry about Solo because I love Solo. That's my Disney Plus go to. If I got nothing to do for 45 minutes, that's the one I go to. And
that's awesome.
So at SEC Media Days down in Hoover, Alabama, a few years ago, in fact, Solo had just come out, and I sat down to do, they have Radio Row. And so Marty Smith and I are doing all these radio interviews, and I've got this ring that twists on your finger, and it has, a long time ago, Galaxy Far, Far Away, just on the ring. So everybody knows I'm the guy, right? And so I sat down, and there's this guy, this radio host, and he's got a Millennium Falcon sweatshirt on. And I sit down and I go, well, hey, before we start talking about football, I go, what'd you think of Solo? Oh, I didn't see Solo. The hell was Solo?
What?
Yeah, and I go, all right, so you're one of these guys. He goes, what? And so for the next 10 minutes, I went off on this guy about you know what, dude, you're the reason that we're not going to get any more Star Wars story movies.
Exactly.
Because you decided to take a stand because you don't like Rose or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got so angry, and I go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then I go, okay, I'm done with that now. I don't want to talk about that anymore. And there was this pause, and the guy goes, well, Ron, we're out of time. Thanks for joining us on the sports zoo or whatever the hell it was. And so, so it was, but it's just, but the point, I just think we know too much.
Yeah.
And I think that these things have always happened on films. I think they're always going to happen on films. And I think that sometimes we know too much. And then when the movie comes out, people like it. But we have a tendency to turn everything into a thing. And so fingers crossed, the language is shelved and postponed. And, Patty Jenkins also, by the way, has to go make the third Wonder Woman movie.
Wonder Woman 3.
She's very in demand. So I think that her schedule has to be taken. But anyhow, I don't know anything. I'm not privy to the
I thought it was like every ESPN employee just.
No, we get all the emails.
Yeah,
No. Kathleen Kennedy copies me on everything. But I think we.
Hey, did you CC this guy? Did you CC?
Yeah. Did you CC Marty McGee? But I do think that we are victims of knowing too much. Like I think that I think there's something to be said for not knowing every single thing that happens. And most of what I read, by the way, is I heard this and I heard that, and sources say this and sources say that, and if I write that, I get fired. So I'm gonna go with some official announcements and statements when I see those.
Brent and Nick, did you guys have something real quick? Then we'll tidy everything up. Go ahead.
So I want to say, not only I think since you brought that up, we're a victim of knowing too much. I think we're also a victim of the vocal minority that is the Twitterverse. That
100%.
I live it. Yeah, I live it. Yeah.
That is the reason why there is less freedom. Be like the whole thing, right? So we know too much, but it's also there are people that are so vocal, and there's the tiptoe step that you have to walk as a major corporation to make sure we're walking through those tiptoes. So I want creative freedom, but we also don't want to offend. Because I think what Mark Anthony Austin said, like Disney's worried about that, like the water, like no one's running to water. But it's water. Everyone kind of likes water.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make sure that they are remaining water before they become fire water or ice cold or something and going one way or the other. So I think we're a victim of knowing too much, having too much of a vocal opinion and a too much public say. And there is a little bit of that balancing of everybody's expectations versus are we in offenses. So
Go ahead, Nick.
The overwhelming majority of people don't care about this stuff. They don't. But we live it because we love it. And I compare it 100% to the sports world. And I think as a result, sometimes listen, I cover NASCAR, and NASCAR is really struggling. And part of the reason is because the core audience, I'm putting that in air quotes, but that's what they call them, the core audience, they think they love it more than the people who run it.
Yeah.
And they're willing to choke it to death to prove that love. And that part of it can get a little frustrating. But again, I'm with you guys. I still believe you're right, Brent. It's a very vocal minority as opposed to the overwhelming majority of the people. The $1 billion worth of box office.
Yep.
The 99% of the people that went and saw that movie do not care that there was a story on so-and-so, a cinema blog, that said that so-and-so didn't get along with so-and-so. I think at the end of the day, if the trailer looks good and the movie looks good, they're going to go.
Correct. Nick.
I know we got to go, but I'm curious to not just we know too much, but how much is you're just being given too much? So like the sizzle reel for Rogue Squadron that comes out 3 years before the movie ever even gets released of her climbing in the X-Wing. And you see that as a fan and you're like, that's amazing. Like, I'm so like, this is a done deal. Like this, like that's, and I know that's not how it works, but what I'd be curious in is like, how much of it also is Disney getting in bed with something and going like, wait till you see this movie 3 years from now. And then
it's so much with investors, right? I mean, they've got to go to their investors and the people who are buying Disney stock and say, here's what we have for you. And then it comes out to everybody else. Yeah, I'm not sure everybody else needs to see it. Just let the investors see it and just keep it under wraps, right? I mean,
it always makes me think too about how much work is lost to the machine, right? Just all the barriers of entry to getting this stuff made, from concept art to shots of people like climbing in X-Wings, like whatever the case may be. Like, it's now that we are given this access, it's kind of fascinating to think about all the work that's been done through the years that has never seen the light.
Yep.
In every facet, not just Star Wars.
And theoretically, I could be an investor, right? Because it's a publicly traded company. If I own a share, I am an investor. So I could be privy to that information, right? But before we go, since we're getting done, and I have waited to the end to ask this question, I asked the question of every new host.
There we go.
And I don't know if I've asked T-Bob. So I'm going to ask both of you guys, Ryan and T-Bob.
Right. Yeah.
We have a running joke-ish in the podcast or on the podcast about Count Dooku and his lightsaber skills and his lightsaber hilt. And I say that it's debonair and it's got a curve to try to help with his old swashbuckling style. Is there a particular lightsaber hilt that you find yourself gravitating towards?
Ryan, do you can go first. I need to think for a second.
I am a huge fan of, and again, I'm a Return of the Jedi guy, but I'm a huge fan of Luke's, the kind of separated, hilt at the top. I love that. And
is that the green saber? Is that the Return of the Jedi?
Green saber.
Yeah, that's the one he built, and that goes back to, I remember going to the variety pickup, the little grocery store, little gas station by my house in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the big super secret preview. There you go. That's it.
That's the
big
one.
There you go. Dave, you're the man.
Wow, DDoc, let's ride.
But the big super secret preview magazine that was at the gas station that I bought, and it was the two hands holding that lightsaber, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen.
Yep. I love that.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I'm being completely honest, I don't know that I had a hilt just jump off the page to me. Maybe like kind of save for Mauls or Dooku's because they're so different, and obviously Kylo's would fall into that as well. But there is something to be said about the old school aesthetic, and I mean, we all knew what it felt like to watch Luke show up in Jedi, and all of a sudden he like carries himself just so much different. He's got the black saber, the green saber, so that stands out. And then I didn't know this on Disney Plus. You scroll over to extras, and on every movie, they just have a ton of little short clips and this or that. And there is a deleted scene from Return of the Jedi where you see him building the saber
with R2.
So, so I thought that was pretty fascinating, dude. But I don't really have a dog in this fight. But original trilogy aesthetic definitely appeals to me, I think, nostalgically.
But
Well,
I like Dooku. I used to watch old Dracula movies.
Hell yeah, dude. It was
so
for
that
me.
was,
He was always Saruman.
yeah.
there you go. Hey, that's another good point. Well, again, we've gone a long show tonight. It's because we had great guests and because we had great topics and we talked about some great things. So I appreciate it. Before we go, I'll start off just the last comment here. November 17th is Life Day, Star Wars Life Day. Started back in 1978 when the original holiday special came out. So for all of you who listen to the show, we'll try to have it out tomorrow. And there we go. We got Wookiees right there with Mr. McGee. Just that, while it's cursed and people think so poorly of it, you know what? There's a special little part of that thing that really stands out. And yes, the Boba Fett cartoon in the middle of it is great. So you know what? Happy Life Day to everybody. And by the way, if you like to collect, I'm hearing rumors that there are going to be Black Series figures from the Life Day holiday special. So
Joe, stop it. You can't buy Life Day Black Series figures. You can't.
Nick, I'll start with you. Any closing thoughts for you before we head out?
No, Joe, thank you for hosting another great show. And Ryan, awesome to meet you.
You got it. DDoc, closing comments from our Philly guy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was fun hearing Ryan talk about his love for Star Wars and stuff, and it was just cool to have him on. And T-Bob, good luck playing the Eagles this week.
Oh, Joe. Wow, dude, excuse me. Screw y'all, dude. Y'all got us last year. Now we got to go up there again.
We're coming in hot after a nice win against the Broncos right here, so we're actually looking like a team. We'll see.
Okay.
Are you a fan of the Aints? Are you a fan of the Aints?
Yes, bro. Louisiana right now.
I'm a Falcon fan. I'm a Falcon fan.
Well, okay.
Man.
Well,
Tough time to be a
my
Falcon
old
fan.
man. My old man
I
played
didn't
for
know-
the Saints and the Falcons back in the day. So
I don't know if
I grew
we're-
up both.
We're on
Which is
fighting
weird to
terms
say.
at this point. I think
Yeah.
we're mortal enemies.
I think you need to have some
Well,
wagers
lucky a
during
couple
those
weeks
games.
ago.
Definitely wagers.
Yeah, I think so definitely as well. Well, screw you, DDoc. Y'all are going down this weekend. You got lucky, Brent. And no, Joe, thank you, man. It's always awesome. And
Yeah,
it's
no
just
problem.
a super ton of fun. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry we woke up your kid, T-Bob, but thank you for being
I got-
on. And
Y'all got me kicked out of the house. I'm literally kicked out of the house now. So I'm gonna have to go clean that up.
All for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But again, our original guest. So thank you for always coming back. We love having you, and
Yeah, man. I love it.
I'm sure Joey will be back soon to visit you in Baton Rouge. So maybe he'll take me next time. Ryan, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, to meet you. We've interacted on Twitter, like I said, but now to have some interaction with you, and just thanks for being a Star Wars fan and want to come and share with us on here. Any closing thoughts you have before we shut it down?
No, I mean, going back to the original point, it's just good to be able to talk about it and know that everyone's going to understand what I'm talking about, as opposed to having to qualify everything and explain it and check it and all that stuff. So it has been a really long time. I mean, I'm talking like a really long time since I dropped a solid Corrin Rogue One or Rogue Squadron reference, and everybody went, yeah, okay, good call. Oh, so usually it's just me by myself in the basement. So thank y'all, boys.
No
Appreciate
worries. And I will tell you, before we shut down, again, Mass got some things going on where he can't be with us. Mass will be celebrating his 50th birthday this Saturday. So if anybody wants to shoot a message out to Mass, any of our listeners, any of you co-hosts, turns 50 this Saturday, and he's been one of my best pals since we were 13 years old. So to have this to where we're still pals and talking about this is great. So guys, thank you. As always, I didn't tell you at the beginning of the show, follow us at Rule the Galaxy SW on Twitter. Our email, ruletheGalaxySW@gmail.com. If you want to rip on the Falcons, the Saints, the Colts, the Eagles, the Steelers, Ryan didn't ask you, but NFL team.
Hey, Cam's back. Panthers are going to win everything. Cam's
Panthers.
back.
Okay.
Oh no!
Cam's back. He scored one touchdown. Everybody in Charlotte's decided we're going back to Super Bowl. So there you
There we
The
go.
NFC South. The NFC South is
NFC
strongly
South.
represented.
Cam's back,
right
baby.
here.
Superman's
Oh,
back.
Gosh. All right. I
It
didn't know
is-
we were going
Sorry,
down that path.
I got a helicopter rolling by later.
You got it, guys. See you next week. Until then, may the force be with you.